So welcome to Ali Torvoniemi, producer and one of the directors behind Force of Habit. We're going to speak about the film today, and we're going to speak about you and the project behind Force of Habit. My first question today is actually about the project itself, because Force of Habit, it's the film, but it is part of a larger project which includes 15 filmmakers and lots of different 11 films, of which 6 have been made into feature film. Can you tell us a bit more about how the project was born, about you and Toffee Film, the Finnish film production that it's behind the project and of which you are the founder?
Yeah, so thank you. Really honored to be here and meet the audience like this for this really dear project for us. So I'm Elli. I'm one of the co-founders and owners of the production company Toffee Films, which is based in Helsinki, and this year turned to 10 years old company. Thank you. Time flies. And so it's sort of a coincidence, but also not that we all are women behind the company itself, and as well this Force of Habit project, which we started already 2016 in the spring, and it kind of naturally came on board in a way that we realized here in Toffee and me as a person and we as humans that how it is possible that we constantly seem to face this kind of like really not nice situation where we are dismissed or ignored or harassed even because of our gender. And even we are in a kind of like a power position or grown-ups or kind of like in a civilized environments, it seems that it kind of like keeps on coming from various sources, and sort of that everyone seems to recognize it, but no one why it's so common. And so it kind of like started from the frustration, to be honest, like how is this possible that every single person I turn to, especially women, they kind of like recognize and seems to talk about these issues, these one-off incidents, and we all know that it's not okay. And so, but maybe the frustration turned into inspiration when during this summer 16 or spring 16 we saw 2 stage plays. One was Anna Paavilainen Play Rape, where she as an actor and filmmaker herself brought herself on a stage and told that how really on a funny and touching and moving way, how does it feel to be raped on a stage, like night after night, and that's the best way you can actually get as female actor. And it also told a lot about the representation in the popular culture and art itself. So it was really, really rich and meaningful stage play and got great reviews and all that. And then at the same time, there was another one, a monologue as well from Raisa Omaheimo. It was called Fat. And she brought on a stage that how does it feel when your body and you is constantly under commenting. So you're not really owning yourself anywhere. And it was also really funny and touching and brave. And then we were together with Kirsikka Saari, kind of like, just like really inspired. And yeah, they said everything about this phenomenon we just described, or a lot of things about that. And there's like, yeah, film needs to do the same. Because we, with film, as the filmmakers, of course, we kind of like, you can grasp those really small moments that where the actual thing happens, that is quite difficult to get the idea that, okay, what actually did happen in this. And because those moments are usually quite small and kind of like they just go really like fast.
Very
But
intense,
yeah,
very
intense,
intense
and we
moments.
kind of like freeze that what did happen and why did this feel absurd, and maybe in the, like afterwards, in aftermath, you understand that, yeah, that wasn't okay and what just happened. And so that was kind of like how we ended up in this sort of a concept that we were like, okay, these will be short films then, these moments that we were describing like to each other, and also that we found out that it's not only us, it's everywhere. So we kind of like, that was really obvious for us that we can't make it like only from our perspective. We are talking about structure, so we need to have the most diverse voices behind us, and also kind of like to describe this structure in the most convenient way, to really describe it as a phenomenon, not as a like, okay, this one of incident cases there by there. So it started really naturally in that sense, that the first people that we invited to kind of like just to develop the project was actually Anna Paavilainen herself, from the Play Rape, and Raisa Omaheimo. And then we of course had this amazing like range of people that we always wanted to work with, but didn't really have kind of like still project to, you know, what to do together. So it was quite easy in a way to just to get kind of like names out of our system that who could be interested in the like.
Yeah, because besides the fact that they're women, obviously they needed to be particularly focused on this issue and understand the cause that you were trying to bring forward. So was it easy to put them together? Like, you had a pool of people, how did you select the right ones?
Yeah, it was really easy, to be honest, because it kind of like when we started this together with Kirsi Kasari, kind of like that we've been working together and sharing the company and all that. So it kind of like started from our like talking in a way and structuring, and what came really clear to us like from the beginning, that how we kind of like, what's the language of our films, always had this kind of like absurd humor in it, in a way, or not always, but that's something that we kind of like how we would describe ourselves, that it should have always this human flavor, with this like a bit twisted humor, and especially in this type of a film, like this type of a theme, we found it really really important that we are not just like representing terrible things again, then kind of like more digging into deep, and also kind of like seeing the absurdity, that how on earth, that if we all see this happening in our everyday life, why we are just accepting it. And so from that perspective, it was quite easy to kind of like list the names, that, okay, this filmmaker and this screenwriter, her work we love, and she we know, and kind of like, so we just like put these names on a list, that who we would like to work with, and whose work we admire, and who we think that would like to have something to say about it. And to be honest, everyone wanted to be in, like from the first call, they got immediately like, yes, I have been waiting this phone call or something like this to happen. And in the end, it was more the opposite, that there was so much more people to wanting to get in than we actually could kind of like get into the structure. So it was really fun and really inspiring and really unique also, how we ended up to develop this whole project together.
And you ended up with 15 filmmakers and 11 stories.
Yes.
So I was reading that it's true that because there's so many episodes, like, how did you pick the right ones to make them the most relevant among all the others? And then once you've picked the relevant episodes, why did you separate these 6 to make Force of Habit the film?
Yeah, good and complicated questions. Well, the whole idea was that we actually how we positioned ourselves, like Kirsi Kasari was working as a dramaturg in all of the projects, and I work as a producer in all of the projects, including my own project. So we didn't want to limit or kind of like put any kind of like formats on these topics before we get together and kind of like talk it through, and then we just talk it through. We met at least once or twice in a month together with it, and the group bit got bigger in the end, and we just sat down and we talked through that, okay, what kind of ideas we do have, experiences, and more like much more wider. It was really open discussion and safe discussion in the safe space where we actually kind of like just reflected each other. Also, because we knew in the beginning, that was something I wanted to do in the beginning, that okay, we need to do many shorts that has different filmmakers behind it, but it's not enough. For the reason that in the short film you can tell things that you can't tell in the feature film, and the opposite. And the other reason, the industry and the actual kind of like to really stand out. Even though you would make 100 shorts that will all win in Sundance, they don't stand out in the same way as the feature film does. And that's the kind of like the industry and audience and marketing and all that communication. And on the other hand, you can tell something that you can't tell in the short form, even you would have many of those. So that was really from the early stage what we knew, that this is the concept, and it's crazy, but it might work. And so
actually,
yeah, and we are really happy. And it all started kind of like that. We just talked it kind of like that, what you would like to do as a director, what you would like to say as a filmmaker. And so people just brought their ideas on the table and what they would like to do. And we didn't force anything. We just like, and also how we created it, it was okay, there was similarities in the project. So then, okay, could you think to do something else? Because this is already kind of like in her film or things like that. And then we, of course, we wanted to explore it so wide as possible, but also always keep the kind of like the core of the filmmaker behind that. Not, okay, if this is the story you want to tell, then it's the story you want to tell. And then we just need to make it work. And that's why it came quite, that it sort of like expanded, that we wanted to have like not only sexual harassment, like because it's only one part of the whole structural problem or the equality problem. We wanted to expand it to the work life and kind of like more on those levels, and the representation questions and all that. And then just like the practical part, that how can you manage?
yes.
And we were on the limits, to be honest. And the 11th film, actually, the Festive Spirit, it came the last, and it came after Me Too movement happened, because we started this project before Me Too, and we
2016, you were saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were already kind of like quite along ahead in that stage when Me Too happened. And first we were like, oh my God, we are late. and then we were like, are we? Actually, we are so on time.
Yes.
And it's all happening. But what we needed to do, it was like to comment that conversation that Me Too caused. All that kind of like how Me Too movement had destroyed everything, and it's like discriminating men and all this conversation that we kind of like found out that this sort of a backlash happened in, especially in social media and in attitudes as well. So that's why we needed to do the 11th film, to kind of like to reflect like what happened after Me Too.
Yeah.
And so it was this organic way of working, and Kirsikka Saari, as said, she was working doing the whole production in all of the films as a dramaturg, and then we directed, or we kind of like were responsible with Kirsikka by directing the feature version. So meaning like Kirsikka was writing the script based on the scripts of the all of the 11 films. And it was quite a challenge because we couldn't really do the script before all the scripts were done.
Right.
Of the
you mean the scripts for the feature film?
Yes.
Yes.
And that was a long process. Because the whole shooting process of the short films, or the whole process, took more than a year, like almost a year and a half. So and also the financing, I'm still not anymore financing, but it took like 4 years almost to finance this whole project. Because
I also wanted to ask you about that actually.
Yeah.
Shall we go there? How it was? What were the challenges of financing a project like this? Because obviously, it's a theme that is very dear to me. I would say, wow, I would have financed it immediately. But I guess because it's so polarized and it's so hot in terms of subject matter, was it easy to finance it? How did you manage? Did you get public funding? Was it Christmas presents?
Well, it was of course a lot of work and a lot of faith in it, and also, but how it all started, we were kind of like, that was part of the whole conversation, of course, that we were like, okay, we do this anyway, was the kind of like at least we do the short films, or kind of like that was the attitude. That's how we started, that okay, we do this anyway because this needs to be done, even though we all are professionals and making our living out of this. But this felt a project that we wanted to protect in a way, that we didn't go straight forward to the financing process, that we wanted to keep it ourselves and kind of like, okay, this is the concept, and these are the stories, these are real, this is true, kind of like not to go in that sort of like developing and financing loop, where we also found out that we quite often, especially women's projects, end up to being kind of like, oh, this is not, is this something, is this interesting, kind of like this quite not healthy and effective processes. So that was the first thing, that it was really important to me, that we don't go out before we are done, and we know what we do because we want to do this, and also, and we had such an amazing crew, like the top filmmakers in Finland. So it was obviously that we had this amazing opportunity to really develop, like really kind of like, it was almost like a writer's room without like everyone writing, but it was more like just like really supporting each other also, because in the beginning we felt all like, I remember myself, and I was really doubting like my own project, and like, is this a theme? Is this really something? Could this work? Is this just crazy? Are we just like frustrated and angry? And all these kind of like belittling thoughts, and that also reflects the structures, how it works, that how you actually have learned to put yourself down in these processes. And when you have this amazing like super pro people around you, say like listening you, and I say, yeah, that's really good, that's really true, like, so
you felt like you could advance the money, basically.
Yeah,
you did advance the money, and
yes.
then it was a matter of financing ex post, once the films were done. So you're still in the process.
Yeah, but we did, yeah, we kind of like we did get financing for the making the film, so it was a really long process. But I mean that getting the green light and everything, or getting like the production through it, we were quite far. So it was not kind of like traditional way of kind of like getting the financiers on board the developing process. It was more that we got quite a nice development fund from Kone Foundation, which is quite unusual, really supporting art and science that are like on the borderline of not maybe fitting in the regular world. So we were kind of like a quite obvious project for them. So they supported us like with the grant that we could actually develop it. It's quite far before we went out to the traditional film financing. And it was like a piece by piece. We really needed to convince, the first question was that, okay, why you are not narrowing this only for the sexual harassment? It's like, well, because it's not only about sexual harassment.
Yes, it's only part of the problem. It's only one side of the coin.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that was, yeah, and then it leads to another. Well, how does the inclusivity or diversity deals with this? Like, well, it's part of the whole structure, and so, but it was of course a learning process for us as well. And I'm so much more sensitive and wise after this myself as well. And I think that was the kind of like the most fruitful part, to be honest. So there was like, we got a lot of financing in place, like it's not the high budget at all, but it's still relevant, and it still like matters, and we aimed the highest what we could, and I would like to go more, and I would see the potential for international financing and everything, but it also felt that sometimes you just need to do the film and the financing. So I was kind of like in there, kind of like, okay, now we just need to make it happen, and also like the relevance of the time and all the timing and everything. So I would say like in practical, it was super tough, like to get like piece by piece, and a lot of work and a lot of convincing, and so much material. It's 12 filmed together plus outreach campaign. So it's I don't know what if when I look back, I'm like, this is insane.
But you should say, you've made it.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing product, and it speaks to people, and it really stands out. At least I've watched Force of Habit, but it stands out because it gives you a different perspective on what everybody knows.
Yeah.
So how come that we are all prone to say, oh, but maybe it doesn't matter, or maybe it's not important enough, or and there's discrimination by gender. It's so rooted in our way of looking at people and relationships that we probably are not even aware. And this films does a lot to make us aware that even jokes or some behaviors are just not acceptable.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's very, very clear the way the film approaches the issue. So we were discussing, though, the whole structure of Force of Habit. So we had an anthology. So the anthology, it was done. It's done. And then you had the issue of putting together 6 of these films. Which one did you pick, and why? How did you make because the film works like of course you have 6 different stories, but they are cross-cut into the film, and the editing is quite complex. So how did the whole thing get together?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it was a lot of Kirsikka's work behind, in the sense that we had a reference film actually when we started to talk about what the feature version could be and what's the format behind it. So we knew that and one of the reference films as in a format and kind of like this multi-plot team driven film that doesn't have like one single character or one single plot but the plots themselves kind of like creates the theme and the whole story of the film. And so in that sense it was sort of like an easy way of kind of like figuring out, okay, which themes we have in here in this whole anthology. And one of the super clear themes were that the sexual harassment, that what does sexual harassment mean, like in written, and also like how is it represented in our everyday life. But when you dig into more core, you actually see what's the theme of Force of Habit feature film is, that how the community actually accepts or even makes it possible the sexual harassment to happen in our everyday life. How do we as a community make it happen? By leaving the women and girls alone to survive, and even front of our eyes, and how difficult it is actually to get the justice even in the most highest kind of like power structures, that how the everyday commenting, sexist commenting reflects the most like highest power in our society. And I think that's really I'm really proud that we managed to do this, and it was a lot of Kirsikka's kind of like writing processes also, that she really literally went through all the scripts like scene by scene, like all of the films, and kind of like found out common themes and what could work. And it was sort of a technique in a way that it was really like practical work for her. And we did have another proposal. It was much more empowering and much more fun version, not dealing with sexual harassment at all, but it didn't work because it didn't really grow bigger than the episodes themselves. So it actually didn't really grow into the next level in the sense of we managed to do in the Force of Habit, that the stories themselves, they kind of like, once what one begins, the next kind of like continues. And also what we wanted to make in Force of Habit, which I think we managed, is to put the viewer, the watcher, in women's shoes, like from the beginning until the end. How does it feel to be in these situations and to be left to survive? And like in really literal way. And also like, and the humor itself, I think that you can find it in every single film in our anthology, the kind of like essence of how the absurdity. But that was something that it was already in the certain films. So it felt that, okay, these could work together. But of course we needed to do a lot of creative and artistic decisions in the edit room and in the process. And we are it's such a trust that I don't know, I can't say, my words doesn't kind of like are enough, because how directors kind of like give their babies to us to just, you know, to make a new film out of it. It wasn't the most easiest one, but it's once in a lifetime thing, I would say.
So did you direct the final assembling?
Yeah, together with Kirsikka.
With Kirsikka.
Yeah, we were sitting in it was a funny, we were sitting in an edit room basically together with 2 or 3 editors, and 3 months almost. and it was really like really practical work what we did, and we did also shoot some new scenes and shots for the feature version, and every single director did their own piece. So I did something for my piece, and Reetta Aalto went to direct for her piece, and Jenny went to her piece. So we basically ordered what we need in the edit room, and it was actually really fun and really efficient and crazy. And that was really collective filmmaking. I remember a day when we were sitting here with Kirsikka in edit room together with two editors on their own computers, and I had one storyline and Kirsikka had one, and then one director was shooting one scene and another went on the evening. So we basically, almost the whole crew was working for that on the same day. And it felt, I think it sort of like crystallized something out of that. We actually did have, like, we came from the same point of view, and the knowledge that we had together made the film happen.
And what about the actors? Were they involved? How did you work with the actors? Because it's interesting to see how obviously they play very, very important roles to make sure that the meaning of the film comes out. And I was wondering, were they behind the cause as much as you were? How did you involve the actors? Were they just professional actors doing their job, or did they actually got involved in the project as a bigger thing?
Yes and no. I would say that all of the directors were so involved in the project that it was sort of an easy way to communicate, like, what do we do? And yes, actors were really involved. Everyone felt this super, everyone wanted to come for sure. And I think it's also, of course, it's a lot of because of the great scripts and great directing work and committed directing work and about communication, and it was in this project, I think we talk, we just talk all the time that what we do and what our aim is, and we talk all the time about the outreach campaign, that we want to talk to young people, especially because we feel that they are not involved in this conversation at all, and even though they are living the same life and actually facing a lot or suffering a lot about these structures. So I think it came from us, like as a team, that what do we do, and it kind of like, please come with us. But I have been thinking the same, that how did that happen, that everyone seems to in the way act in the same film. Of course, even though they really own language in every single episode, but I think my explanation for that is that, okay, the communication, and it was super clear what we want and what we do, but also those moments are so recognizable. It's so you just get them because you have lived them through, you have seen them so many times, unfortunately. So it's not anything extraordinary, it's something that you know by heart, and that's sort of heartbreaking, but I think that's true as well, because you don't need to really kind of like
imagine too much. Yes, exactly. So my last question here, it's actually another big question, because I'd like to know what's next. First of all, for Tufi, for Ellie, and for Force of Habit. So what are the next steps in terms of projects, and what you have in mind for yourself, your production company, and for the film? Because obviously the film has, it's going through COVID as well.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, where are you taking it?
Yeah, it's that's a good question. It's been traveling quite well, even without this COVID situation, which of course unfortunate for film for sure. But I'm really happy it's already have been in Australia, in South Korea, and South Africa, where it won 2 prizes, which we are super happy, and now in London, and it's going around, but I'm not sure they announced yet. So it's traveling well. I'm really happy about it, and despite this, and next is actually in 2 weeks. It's gonna be in the National Film Awards finally, where it's nominated for the best film, best directing, and best screenwriting.
Oh my God, congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats, yes.
So it's really fun, and it's really honored to be triple nominated as well. So it's going to be super exciting. And anyway, it's a thing to celebrate. I think we are making the film history anyway. And despite whoever gets the prizes, so but it feels like we already did something, like, for not only for the film industry, but also like for as a humans. And with Tufi, it's a lot going on actually. Yesterday we started to shoot our comedy series.
Oh wow, something different, very different.
Yes, it's really different. It's there's 2 women who decide to live their life as they want in my age, and including whatever. And it's second season already. So the first one was quite a success here in Finland, and so now we're working with the second. And also they're gonna be a children's film, really ambitious one. Live action children original screenplay, also by Kirsikka Saari and Jenni Toivoniemi. Which it's gonna be great. It's great film. It's right to be ready to deliver, and that's where we are aiming to open early next year, hopefully in one festival. And yeah, then we have a lot things in development, especially in the series work, but also we are working a horror film, like Elevate.
Wow.
Yeah,
you're gonna show that to us. We would, I mean, all of your work actually would be very interesting to follow you and see what you're doing, and I hope really that you keep doing the good work that you've been delivering with Force of Habit, in terms of the quality of the film, but also of the bigger scope, as if cinema has a bigger goal for humanity, and this is what you've achieved. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you, and I really hope you continue, because we need people like you, and we need companies like yours, and we need films like Force of Habit.
Thank you.
I really want to wish you the best of luck with everything, and hopefully we'll be in touch. Our path will cross again, hopefully soon.
It will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us, and take care.
You too, Ellie. Thank you. Stay safe.
You too. Bye.